Hey guys, it's Paradise and welcome back to another Monster Hunter Wilds video and our Weapon Workshop tutorial series. This is a series where we go over everything you want to know about the weapons, from their basic moves all the way to your main combos and recommendations, including how the weapons work and the theory behind them. We'll have you covered with a Weapon Workshop tutorial for each of the 14 weapons in the game, but today we'll be focusing on a weapon that utilizes powerful bonks and musical doots to take down monsters and support allies, the Hunting Horn. If you guys do enjoy these videos, a like, comment, or share would be super appreciated as we put a ton of work into each and every one of these guides. The Hunting Horn is a unique blend of powerful impact attacks and team-wide buffs, making it one of the most underrated yet rewarding weapons in Monster Hunter. At its core, the Hunting Horn revolves around playing notes through attacks, then performing melodies that grant powerful buffs to both yourself and your team. This ranges from things like attack buffs, sharpness restoration, and even healing. There's a common misconception that this is just a support weapon, but the reality is this thing hits hard. It has massive swings capable of staggering monsters, scoring KOs, all while dealing massive damage. The Hunting Horn is able to generate notes with its attacks, and combinations of 2 to 4 of these notes together will create various melodies that can be performed to apply their effects. These notes come in 3 types. Note 1 for triangle, note 2 for circle, and note 3 for triangle and circle together. But do notice that the color of these notes will change based on your Hunting Horn. Playing these notes will start filling up the musical staff, or as we will refer to it as, the note meter, which is located below your health bar. Combining specific notes together in different orders will queue up melodies that are located next to the note meter. You can see the list of melodies available to your hunter in the top right of the screen, making it easier to keep track of what you need to play and in what order. It's good to know melody sequences often flow into each other, letting you reuse the last note of your previous melody to lead into the next one. So for example, if a melody ends with note 1, a triangle, you can flow directly into another melody that starts with a note 1. Playing out a melody will automatically store it in the melody queue. This allows for up to 3 melodies to be saved at one time, but if you start to queue additional ones, it will begin overwriting them. Once you're ready, you can then perform them to activate their effects, such as granting buffs to yourself and your team, or adding extra damage with echo waves. Note that performing a melody will apply its effects and change the melody wording to the color yellow. But if you encore the melody afterwards, or bank the notes and perform it a second time, you'll further enhance the melody, turning the wording to purple, which signifies the strongest version of that buff is currently active, and once it runs out, it will go back to white. If a melody doesn't change color after being executed, it's because it has an instant effect instead of a buff. An important and universal buff across Hunting Horns is self-improvement. This increases your movement speed, and once you encore it, it also increases your damage and prevents your weapon from bouncing. Your other melodies will vary between what Hunting Horn you're using, and there are quite a few, and you can always check what buffs are available in the top right corner of your screen, and if you want further information on each melody effect, the melody effect page in the weapon notes explains each one. But Wilds adds the addition of echo bubbles, which creates a lingering buff field that deals additional damage as you attack. You have 3 charges as shown under your weapon's sharpness by these little bubble notches. You can deploy up to 3 of them at a time, and then you will overwrite the first bubble that you executed. During the animation of the echo bubble, you can input up to 3 notes quickly to store them without actually having to play the attack animation of those notes, but more on this later. We even have new special performance melodies that adds a second cue of its own for performing unique abilities like an offset attack, a group-wide heal, or a shockwave. This isn't to mention the Focus Strike, which is essentially a rhythm minigame that rewards perfect timing with additional damage, and there's various other nuances of your moves and performances, and we'll dive into all of that good stuff soon in the move section. If you would like a quick start guide to get straight to hunting with this awesome weapon, then here's the general flow and combos that you want to use. Don't worry if this gets confusing, we'll have everything explained in detail during the moveset section. This part is strictly for learning the flow of the weapon in a hunt, or for players who want to get straight into the action. You want to start by buffing with your core melodies before a fight. The melodies themselves will be different depending on your hunting horn, but self-improvement will always be one of them. Take note you can pre-buff while on the ground or while riding your sacred. But for this example, I will pre-buff on the ground in one smooth combo, utilizing the multi-note queuing attacks like Flourish and Overhead Slam. Because some melodies end with a note that another one starts with, you can back-to-back queue them more efficiently. For example, my defense up transitions very smoothly into stamina use reduced, as they end and start with the same note, so you don't need to replay that first note of the next melody. This means for a 3-note song, you only need to play the last 2 notes. Another good example is that stamina use reduced will flow directly into Melody of Life, and that flows directly into self-improvement. It is common across different hunting horns for melodies to flow into each other smoothly, allowing for a way to stack multiple at once. But take note of this tip: if you end a combo with a Hilt Stab follow up, which requires a backwards input and any last note input that you want to perform, you can then follow up with R2 to do a faster performance, speeding up this whole process. Now that you're buffed up, it's time to get stuck in and hunting. Your flow will be to attack during any openings you get as the monster recovers from attacks, to start building up some queued melodies. Then during larger openings, you want to execute an echo bubble and then a performance to use those queued melodies with performance beats and encores for high damage output. So throughout the hunt, you want to try executing note attacks in the small openings that you have, focusing on targeting the monster's head for additional stamina and knockout damage, as we do deal blunt damage with the hunting horn. The echo wave melodies are better to build towards during these openings, but if you're just starting out, the notes themselves don't matter too much at this point since you're already buffed, so you could always go for your stronger hitting attacks instead, such as your overhead smash with forwards, triangle and circle, and then another triangle and circle together to do the overhead smash follow-up, which are both heavy-hitting, powerful attacks. Alternatively, you could use a Hilt Stab after the first overhead smash to give you a way to loop this combo with more flexible note storing. Alternatively, doing a quick turnaround back slam is a great option if the monster's head is high up or out of reach. Just turn your hunter away from the monster before executing a neutral triangle plus circle to quickly do a high-reaching bonk behind you. You can follow this up with a neutral triangle for a left swing, which massively mitigates the end lag of the attack and does another strong hitting move. As you get more proficient though, you want to start prioritizing queuing up echo wave melodies for additional damage when you go to do a performance. That is at least while you aren't reapplying your buffs. When a larger opening presents itself, such as a Topple or KO, you want to go for an echo bubble near the monster with R2 and X, and during this animation you can store up to 3 notes. This is perfect to quickly store an echo wave for additional damage during your performance, which you then want to execute immediately after the echo wave ends with R2. Depending on the duration of the opening, you can use performance beats with R2 after each melody is performed. You want to do this just as your hunting horn's jingle ends, or to make it easier, look at your character's head and time it just as they do the slow head bob. If the monster starts to recover though, you can end the performance early with an Encore by pressing triangle and circle, or just straight up dodge roll out of it with an X. So overall, you want to be repeating this flow, making sure to manage your buffs and freely flow between queuing and performing melodies. Note you can always press and hold L1 to see the remaining duration of your current buffs. Keep on attacking during openings with your stronger swings, and when an opening presents itself, go for echo bubbles and performances using echo waves with performance beats when applicable. True mastery will come with learning the monster's attacks as well as your entire moveset. So let's go through the moves. We'll start with the various ways to unsheath your weapon, as there is some nuance to it when it comes to note queuing. By pressing triangle from neutral, you will unsheath your weapon into a neutral stance, and this is useful for when you need to draw out your weapon without attacking, such as when you're stood next to a sleeping monster. However, by pressing a directional triangle input, you will execute a forward smash. This attack banks note 1, making it a great option for immediately starting a fight with that note stored in your melody setup. Your draw attack, however, can be iterated on by cancelling the note 1 input by immediately inputting either circle or triangle plus circle to execute and store their notes and their attack instead of a note 1 with forward smash. This means your draw attack can instantly go into and bank any of your starting 3 notes. You do not have to draw straight into a note 1. You can also draw into a perform by pressing R2 from neutral, which will instantly unsheath your hunting horn while performing any stored melodies that you have. This allows you to enter combat immediately with a performance, which is good if you have pre-queued melodies. If you have multiple melodies banked before unsheathing though, you can iterate on the draw performance by instead inputting R2 and circle or R2 and triangle, allowing you to play the second or third stored melody of your choice first. This means you don't have to draw into performing the first song of your stored melodies. So if refreshing a specific buff is more important in that moment, you can perform any of the 3 stored ones first. Now that you know the different ways to enter combat, let's go over your basic attacks and how they interact with the note system. Pressing triangle while stationary will perform a basic left swing that stores note 1 into your meter. This is a fast and reliable move, and it's a frequently used opening attack for setting up a self-improvement melody. But note this swings from left to right, so you want to position in front of your target or to the right of them in order to cleanly connect to a monster's head. This can chain into a forward smash with a second triangle input, but you can also directly access the forward smash by pressing a directional input and triangle without a prior left swing. This makes it a great opening for a powerful strike, and it stores a note 1 into your note meter just like a left swing. Pressing circle from neutral though will execute a right swing which hits from bottom right to upper left. This stores a note 2 in your note meter, and it can be comboed into a flourish with a secondary circle input. Now Flourish is one of the standout basic attack moves that we have. It doesn't have to be a follow-up from right swing, as you can do it from neutral with a directional input and circle. This move is unique because it can generate 2 notes during its animation instead of just 1. During the second swing of the Flourish animation, you can input an additional note. This will instantly store that note without having to do it as an actual follow-up attack. This makes Flourish a highly efficient move, allowing you to quickly stack melodies while maintaining offensive pressure. Note, however, the second half of the animation, and thus the second opportunity to bank a note, can be cancelled out of with a dodge roll, allowing you to reposition, say if the monster flinches or moves. This also makes it one of the fastest moves to execute when using a dodge cancel. Pressing triangle and circle together though will execute a backward strike. This is a single heavy hitting move that does a wide swing behind you, but it will also catch any enemies directly in front of you. This move stores note 3 in your note meter and is one of the hardest hitting core attacks in your kit. One unique aspect of the backward strike is that you can turn your hunter away from the target just before inputting the attack to ensure that the swing hits the target behind you with greater range. This is something that advanced hunters will integrate into their gameplay. This makes it a great tool for aiming at a monster's head to set up KOs. In past games, doing this quickly backwards is known as a quick turnaround backslam or QTABS. If you input another triangle plus circle afterwards though, this move chains directly into an overhead smash. This is a high damage follow-up move with extra note stacking potential. A quick tip is to use focus mode to do a 180-degree turn when executing this follow-up after doing a QTABS first. Alternatively, after doing a backward strike, you can do a stationary triangle follow-up to do a left swing, which massively helps mitigate its end lag. Now, in a similar way to how Flourish can be accessed directly, the overhead smash can also be executed without any prior attacks by using directional forwards triangle plus circle from neutral. This is a 2-hit slam, striking once on the way up and then again on the way back down. The second hit is much stronger though, so you want to make sure that one lands even if the first misses. This will store a note 3 on the first hit, and allows for a second note to be banked during the second swing of the animation, functioning in a similar way to Flourish. After this move finishes, you can do another forwards triangle and circle to execute an overhead smash follow-up, delivering an even stronger final slam while banking another note 3 dealing massive damage. Next we have our Hilt Stab, a quick, precise follow-up strike performed by pressing backwards on any attack input after any other hunting horn attack. Instead of doing that note's full attack animation, this does a quick Hilt Stab that will then bank the corresponding note that you input. This makes Hilt Stab an essential technique for experienced hunting horn players, as it allows for faster note stacking and melody setup without committing to the longer animations of those standalone note attacks. The Hilt Stab also leads into the fastest possible iteration of performance, allowing melodies to be activated much more quickly than usual. Now that we've covered note stacking and your basic attacks, let's go over performing, which is the hunting horn's signature mechanic that allows you to activate your melodies, dealing powerful damage and controlling your positioning while you play. Pressing R2 from neutral initiates a standard performance. This plays your stored melodies and grants you their buffs. But note that performing will clear out your note meter, meaning any saved notes in the meter will be lost. This, however, is not just for support and buffing. It also deals significant damage, delivering an initial swing followed up by a blast, and then an additional blast per melody performed. Since a neutral perform is slower than other performance variants, it's best used if you have larger openings, otherwise the other ones are generally better. Perform attacks have multiple variations that change based on your previous attack or movement input. Additionally, between each performed melody, you can slightly reposition by holding down a directional input, allowing for some small steps after each performance. Furthermore, you can choose which melody out of the 3 stored melodies you want to perform first by pressing R2 with triangle or circle. This means the order that you stored your melodies in isn't super important, as you can choose which one to do first. If you don't have any melodies queued, this will just do a swing and nothing more. By pressing directional R2 from neutral, you'll perform a kick on the hunting horn in the direction of your input before beginning the performance. This is slightly faster than the neutral version and offers good control over it. You can also do this immediately after an attack by pressing forwards and R2, ensuring quicker transitions into performance. Furthermore, this can be done after dodge cancelling out of an attack, and you can always dodge cancel out of the performance itself, which is common if a monster starts to ready an attack. After any attack though, you can instead do a backwards and R2 to perform a large backswing before the performance begins. This version provides a slight backwards reposition, making it a great option for moving while performing. If you need to reorient after performing though, you can always press forwards during the performance that resets the horn's position forwards, making it easier to control where the sonic blasts will execute as you do each melody. After most attacks, you can also do left or right plus R2, which will initiate a sideways swing before performing. This means you have a great tool for lateral repositioning before going into a performance. If you do perform with R2 directly after a Hilt Stab as said before, this will have you hold the horn high and execute melodies faster. This is one of the fastest ways to play out your melodies, and is great for reaching high up monster parts. Now that you understand your performances, it's time to understand how to extend their effectiveness with performance beats and encores. After completing an individual melody while performing, you can press R2 again to execute a performance beat. This deals additional damage while prolonging the entire performance sequence. This allows you to stack extra hits in your performance while still activating your melodies. There is, however, a perfect timing element to this, which will make the hunting horn flash red and deal increased damage. When you're first trying to perfect this timing, it might seem very difficult, but there's 2 methods that make it much easier. One method is to go by the jingle of the hunting horn. Just as the jingle is coming to an end, you want to input R2 to get that perfect timing. But in the middle of a hunt or in chaotic situations, this isn't so easy to hear or pick out. So experienced hunters will use the animation of your character, some using the movement of your feet, while we prefer the movement of your hunter's head. It doesn't matter which part of the melody you go to do the performance beat on, the second head bop of the hunter, the more pronounced one, will always be your indicator to press R2. So on the second head bop, when you see the hunter start to raise and lower their head, hit that R2 button to get a performance beat with perfect timing much easier. You can perform 1 performance beat per melody in your sequence, except for the last one, which will instead do an encore. Encoring is the final step of your performance sequence or individual performances, which will do extra damage and repeat the last songs that were performed, enhancing their effects. As said before, there is also a perfect timing element to this, just like there is for performance beats. You can trigger an encore in two different ways. After a single song is performed in a sequence, you can press triangle and circle to end the performance early and encore any performed melodies in the sequence. If you have a 2 or 3 melody sequence and have executed each one, then R2 will simply end the performance with an encore and boost all of the previously played melodies. Now let's talk about our echo bubble. By pressing R2 and X, you will deploy an echo bubble, which is an area of effect field that buffs hunters inside of it based on the hunting horn that you're using. These buffs will remain active as long as you stay within the bubble's range, but will decay if you move outside of it. Each bubble lasts for around 60 seconds before it will disappear, but they only take around 30 seconds to recharge. You can place up to 3 echo bubbles at a time, and any after that will overwrite old ones. You can see your 3 echo bubble uses in the UI in the top left of the screen. Echo bubbles, however, provide more than buffing. They're also an offensive tool. When you perform melodies or play notes, the echo bubble will release a shockwave that deals extra damage to nearby monsters. This makes proper positioning of them essential, as placing multiple bubbles can really add to your damage, but requires more prep and is nullified if a monster moves away. During the echo bubble animation though, you can input up to 3 notes back to back, which allows you to cue them without doing their attacks. The timing on this isn't too strict, but it is quite fast, so you want to master this to be efficient with setting up your melodies while deploying a bubble. If you're struggling, you can just spam inputs to bank 3 notes, but more intentional button presses make it a lot easier, especially for note 3s that require both attack inputs. Then we have special performances, which are unique melodies that are stored separately to your other melodies. These require a different order of notes depending on the special performance. They're activated separately from normal performances, so to perform these you use R2, triangle and circle all together. You can do it during most attacks or even during performances to cancel out of them. Each special performance has its own unique effect, making them powerful tools for offense, utility or support. The offset melody will execute a quick backwards spin which actually has some iframes in it, and then you will follow up with a strong attack that acts as an offset attack if it connects to an incoming hit. This is a powerful counter-attack tool, capable of interrupting monster attacks while dealing good damage. The offset attack occurs late in the animation, specifically during the large follow-up swing after entering your stance. This move can be held down, which will delay the swing, allowing it to be easier timed against predictable monster strikes. You can even turn this move up to 180 degrees by using focus mode when you release the hold and do the actual offset part of the attack, making this very potent to offset attacks from most incoming angles. Next is your Resounding Melody. This unleashes a series of 3 swinging strikes with a short range that hit repeatedly. If the final hit connects though, it triggers a massive piercing sound wave to shoot forwards in a line, which will travel through and pierce a monster, dealing multiple ticks of continuous damage as it travels. Note the move has no hyper armor, so you need a sufficient opening to execute it, and this is an amazing move that's best used against longer monsters as the sound travels through the monster, damaging them. Then we have the Melody of Life, a unique special performance that restores a large amount of health to both yourself and allies. This makes it a great tool for support-oriented hunting horn builds. However, do be careful as this performance leaves you vulnerable during its animation, meaning you will need to pick the right moment to activate it. It's arguable if it's better to just sheath your weapon and use a Dust of Life, but since the Melody of Life can be used infinitely without consuming resources, it's still a great healing option if that is your focus. Pressing L2 and R1 though will perform our Focus Strike Reverb. This is a slow but deliberate stab with the horn, and if you hit a red wound it will trigger its follow-up sequence. This attack without a wound is not really recommended to do due to the long animation and relatively low damage. It does, however, somewhat pierce through the monster, making it a bit easier to connect to a red wound if you're very close. Successfully hitting a red wound with it will transition your hunter into a guitar solo style follow-up. Inputting up to 5 notes in rapid succession during this animation allows you to cue those notes and get additional damage. The timing starts just as your hunter begins strumming the horn. Each correctly timed note adds an extra tick of damage to the wound, with an extra sonic explosion at the end if you get all 5 timed inputs correct, making it a high damage sequence if perfectly done. Make sure to practice this in the training room to get the timing down, but generally you want to follow this speed for the inputs. While riding, you can execute note attacks to store melodies, allowing you to perform songs while on the move. Additionally, you can perform songs and even encores while mounted, enabling you to activate buffs while traveling between fights. This is a great option to pre-buff before a fight if a monster moves. Note when drawing your weapon to do a mounted attack, you can follow up immediately with circle or triangle plus circle to cancel a note 1 into a note 2 or note 3. When executing a neutral triangle and circle on your mount, you will do your Dismount Attack, which is a massive backflip and slam. It builds up mount damage, but sadly not too much from our testing. Before the attack connects though, you can input any other note to again cancel a note 1 into a note 2 or note 3. This makes the Dismount Attack a flexible opener, allowing you to immediately store any note that you want. You then have the option of pressing X to jump off of your mount, which will execute a jumping strike and storing a note 1. But as before, this is not limited to just being a note 1. You can cancel it by immediately inputting any other note, allowing you to choose which note to execute when engaging a monster. Alternatively, while mid-air you can press R2, which will do a perform immediately upon landing. Finally, if you're sliding, you can press triangle to execute a jumping strong overhead slam. This deals damage but can also be cancelled into any other note type by immediately inputting a different note during the attack. If you run up a wall with your weapon drawn, pressing triangle will do a scaling smash, which does look pretty cool. When mounted on a monster, R1 will do a heavy bonk, but if hitting a red wound, you will do a spinning double bonk on the monster for massive damage. Sneaking up on the monster will do your sneak attack, which is a single heavy hitting move. Now let's go over some recommended combos to help you out there while you hunt. Because you can cancel your draw attacks into any other note attack, you can open a fight with a quick turnaround backslam by doing a directional triangle draw immediately after turning away from the monster and cancel it with triangle plus circle to start the fight with note 3, doing a QTABS. Next up, your overhead smash and follow up are very strong successive swings that do high damage compared to your other core moves. This makes it a good idea to focus on doing these when possible for very high damage when note queuing isn't a priority. You do this with forwards and triangle plus circle and follow up with another triangle plus circle. Now, depending on your echo wave melody, doing an overhead smash into a hilt stab can be a very good option to repeatedly loop and stack notes to get rapid echo wave melodies banked. For instance, my echo wave starts with a note 1, so I'll just execute that move before going into this combo. But once that is set up, I can then use an overhead smash with forwards, triangle and circle to bank the needed second note 3. During the second swing of overhead smash, I can then bank the next note I need and follow it up with a backwards input and our next desired note to loop this combo repeatedly, stacking up echo waves really quickly. And remember, the overhead smash deals great damage, so this is a very powerful combo. During openings such as topples, KOs, or large recovery animations though, we can always take advantage of this opportunity to use an echo bubble with R2 plus X. During the animation, we can queue up to 3 notes, letting us bank whichever 3 notes are needed for your hunting horn's echo wave melody. Once completed, you will then want to execute a performance with R2 and time your performance beat or encore afterwards with R2. This makes for a strong, self-sustaining combo which you want to utilize when the opening is there to punish monsters. Next is a good way to re-queue your special performance, such as your offset or resounding melody. You want to use a focus strike on a wound, which allows you to queue up to 5 notes very quickly while damaging the monster. You can utilize this time to bank the 4 notes needed for your special performance, then just use any 5th note you would like to get the extra sound wave pop on a monster. So strike a wound with L2 and R1, then quickly follow up with the notes that you need for your special performance. Because you have hyper armor during the focus strike, and you can bank up to 5 notes, this allows you to safely re-up your special performance. Next is one of our strongest but longest combo chains. This is best used if a monster is trapped or completely toppled over. Make sure to stack 3 echo wave melodies, which you can do during the fight or by utilizing echo bubbles around the monster and inputting 3 notes during the animation. Then when you have a large opening, go for your full performance sequence. You want to press R2 to do a performance and then follow up with 3 R2s after each step in the performance to do a perfectly timed performance beat. If you time them perfectly, your horn will flash red and you'll deal extra damage. The final R2 will end with an Encore for massive damage, and if you used Echo Bubbles, this whole combo deals even more damage. Next up, let's go over some recommended armor and weapon skills to get you started. For damage focus skills, Weakness Exploit will increase your affinity on weak points and wounds. Attack Boost will provide raw increases, which works well with the Hunting Horn, especially at level 4 and 5. Burst is great as a single point investment, even on slower hitting weapons like the Hunting Horn. Crit Boost is great when paired with other affinity boosting skills such as Maximum Might, Agitator, or Weakness Exploit as mentioned before. For more support or utility skills, Horn Maestro is fantastic as it extends your melody effects, which is great for increasing uptime on buffs. Lord's Favor Inspiration is a unique one that increases your attack when playing melodies near companions, ideal for co-op hunts. While Slugger increases your stun power on impact attacks when you hit a target's head, which the Hunting Horn is great at. Once you're much more comfortable using the weapon, you can start focusing on adding damage into your build by adding in current high-end skills like the 2-piece Gore armor set with antivirus and even the Corrupted Mantle, but we don't recommend this if you're still learning the weapon. Next, let's go over some helpful tips and tricks to help you out. Let's start by going over special performances because they are always great to have queued, but sometimes you might want to execute them back to back, such as the Resounding Melody. But unfortunately, you cannot stack more than one of these, but you can pre-stack the first 3 notes and then save the last note to execute after performing it. This means you can execute a special performance, then do just 1 note input to cue it again immediately, letting you effectively repeat this back to back. For Wakeup Hits, if it's available, the offset melody is actually a very good option for waking up the monster to deal massive damage. The motion value of the swing of the offset melody is higher than many of the individual hits in your core moveset, making it a fantastic option to make use of that wake up modifier. Alternatively, an overhead smash follow-up is a great choice if you position yourself slightly away from the monster to ensure that the previous hits in the 2-step combo don't wake it up early. The Arkveld Horn is a very interesting one though. It has 2 melodies that open up some interesting playstyles. One is the Restore Sharpness melody that helps mitigate the need to stop fighting and sharpen, letting you purely stay aggressive. And then you have the Extend Melody Effects song. This makes having a second pocket Hunting Horn for additional buffs extremely viable. You can pre-buff with a secondary Hunting Horn that has different melody buffs, then switch to your Arkveld Hunting Horn as your primary weapon in the hunt. Because you're using 2 Hunting Horns, the other buffs will keep their full duration. Then you can use the Extend Melody song to keep active the buffs from the secondary horn without needing to switch back. Thank you all so much for watching. We've put a ton of time into testing, experimenting, and fine-tuning the best way to present these moves, strategies, and mechanics to you in Monster Hunter Wilds. Take what you've learnt here and use it out there in a hunt. Whether you're focusing on supporting your team with powerful melodies or crushing monsters with heavy attacks, the Hunting Horn is an incredibly versatile weapon that rewards both offensive and tactical plays. The more you refine your timing on performances, perfect your combos and shortcuts, the more unstoppable you will become. So keep on honing those skills and I'll see you out there in the next hunt. Here at Arekkz Gaming, we're two friends who love to play games. You have me, Paradise, as well as 2-6.
Our goal is to keep the videos as concise as possible by cutting out any of the fluff and focusing on what really matters with high quality videos.
So make sure you're subscribed down below for more videos on your favorite games coming very, very soon.